Hey there, what's up? Welcome to the video. This video has actually been in the making for the last 2-3 years. I've been taking notes. After 3.5+ years, 80 songs later, and hundreds of ideas thrown away, I've got my first major release in Asia. In this video, I'm going to share with you what I went through pitching songs to the major entertainment companies. This video is for people who want to pitch and write songs for the idol groups in Asia, or people who just want to learn a bit more about what goes on for the songwriters and producers in K, J, and C-pop. And in true AZODi style with these videos, I want to give you balance, sharing some of the highs, and of course, some of the lows. Before we get into that, if you are an artist or songwriter who is inspired by that K-pop sound and would like to work with me, please hit me up via the website link below and we can talk. So the song itself is called Shiny Dancer, and it's for a rookie Chinese VTuber girl group called AZODi, and this was for one of their members called Bella. They are part of Huiwa Entertainment, who have a huge roster of C-pop artists, actors, and a few K-pop groups such as Everglow, WJSN, that's co-managed with Starship, and Woods. The song was co-written by myself, Daniel Kim, you can check out his interview on the channel, and Jess Pierpoint. It was actually one of the first songs I wrote after signing to Daniel's company Melogram, which was last September, October time, so the song has actually taken from start to finish about a year. I'll drop the music video in the description box below for you to check out. It's not I, it's we. You 100% cannot do this alone. Surrounding myself with great writers, producers, and publishers was absolutely crucial. Having conversations with people who've been in the game longer, who could offer advice and support, because they'd been through the process, they knew what I was going through. I mentioned this in the interview, but having Dan pushing me to do better was really important. He had absolutely no problem with saying no. It's the only way you're going to get better, and in the short term, if you're just told, oh, it sounds cool or nice, what's next? It works on a short-term picture, but on a bigger picture, it's actually quite detrimental to you advancing and improving as a songwriter or producer. I would say that it's important to surround yourself with people who are just better than you, dropping your ego when they give you advice and actually implementing the advice that they give you into your work. Even though that's like a super simple thing to say, a lot of people get that wrong due to ego. If you are struggling to find these sorts of people, I highly recommend you check out the Make Pop Music Facebook group. Some very advanced songwriters and producers there, and a nice little promotion to the older AZODi Discord community as well. So great people in there. I'll put a link in the description box for you to check out as well. Treading water. Looking back, actually, over the last sort of 3 years, I would say the first 2 years were the steepest learning curve, where I learned the most, and I didn't really fully get it until the last year, in year 3, and this was after about 50 or 60 finished songs by this point. And probably the longest and hardest part of this entire journey was that whole bubbling under the surface phase, where you're just working constantly with nothing to show for it. You know, every single song that I wrote in this period and currently now has to be kept private. You can't have them in the public eye. Otherwise, the entertainment companies won't want them. You have like 0 indicators showing you how far you are from the goal. It would have been great to have some sort of, I don't know, XP bar filling up, and then when it hits 100%, you win, you get what you're after, but there's nothing like that in real life, is there? When I look back at it, I think about 95% of this entire journey is completely out of my control. I can probably only control about 5%, if that. I technically don't decide if the song gets finished because, you know, you need a top liner. I don't decide if it gets pitched by the publisher, or I don't decide if it gets cut. All of those factors are decided by someone else. Yeah, I had to remember that the number of cuts did not define me as a producer or songwriter, and in a way I was trying to seek external validation with the number of songs that I had released. That's not a good thing at all. It's going to lead on to my next point, which was far more insidious. Seeking external validation is absolute poison. This one really was a subtle one that crept in over the few years, and it's not an easy one for me to share with you right now. The entire music journey absolutely must be for you and no one else. This is so important, and yeah, I really went through this one myself. If you depend on external factors to validate you or to make you happy, external factors that remain out of your control, it is one sure way to have any hope crushed or any self-belief completely obliterated, basically. Without having those, you just give up on the goal altogether, don't you? You just give up. I became very dependent on people and the amounts of cuts I was getting to validate me as a songwriter. Both of those were external factors, and I highly recommend you don't do that. You know, I was putting myself out here on YouTube right from the beginning in early 2019. I was fairly new and I was not an established K-pop writer, but I wanted to document the journey from the beginning and not from the end, and I didn't want to present that polished, finished image that people present on social media so much, you know. But as a result of that, it attracted a lot more critical thinkers and people with objections to my videos. I got a fair bit of flack on my videos for not having any big cuts or massive releases. I was often challenged in the comments, stuff like, well, if you don't have a big cut, how can you call yourself a K-pop producer? AZODi, you're a fraud. I used to get, you're a fraud, or this isn't K-pop, you don't know what you're talking about. The reason why I get it and I understand why people are gonna be like that is the music industry as a whole is pretty savage. With a very low success rate. You hear a lot of stories about people getting screwed over, people's dreams getting crushed, and for me, like, I don't have any public facing songs out there, so I get it. So the general trust in the music industry is gonna be low. But what happened over time is that lack of K-pop success or cuts, and combined with the YouTube comments and not really being where I wanted to be, eventually wore me down, and I ended up falling into quite a deep sadness. I had a huge loss of confidence in my own songwriting abilities, you know, abilities that I'd been working on for the last 10, 15 years. I started to just write off as not being relevant anymore. It was so poisonous how it all kind of happened, you know. The way I managed to turn it around, luckily, and you can see it in my video, This One Thing That Saved My Career, if you want to know it in more detail, I discovered stoicism and implemented a few lessons from that really helped me get through that sadness and kind of add much more balance to my life. So one of those lessons from stoicism, which is still incredibly hard to practice. It's one thing knowing it, but actually implementing the lesson is much harder. But the lesson was, you have to seek validation from the inside, not outside. I had to find stuff that I could control that would validate me from the inside. For me, it was that rewarding feeling of writing something brand new that I had never done before. Being able to sit back and say the song was good enough, or even just having 100 MP3 files of songs on my hard drive. I can't tell you how important that is. I cannot tell you how important that lesson is. This is why the entire musical journey that you're going through must be about you and no one else. It's not out until it's actually out. So technically, this is actually my third cut. Something I learned in the last year or so is songs do get confirmed as cuts, but don't actually come out. I had 2 cut confirmations about a year ago, last October, and those 2 songs were due to be released earlier this year in March. In March, they were not released, and then I heard nothing about them up until a month ago when this video was filmed, due to some internal politics that they had to cancel both releases, and we're fine to take them back and repitch them elsewhere. It is truly a case of it's not out until it's actually out. So after 3.5+ years, 80 songs later, and hundreds of ideas thrown away, I got my first release in Asia. It was hands down the hardest thing I've ever done in my music career, and it's just getting started, really. In my experience, it was a combination of persistence, grit, and knowing when something isn't working for you, and then having the courage and the confidence to change that thing that isn't working for you. I feel that it's quite common amongst people to think that success is down to a lucky break or an overnight success, which is definitely not true. You can definitely get lucky breaks, don't get me wrong, but it's through the application of persistence that creates more of those lucky breaks. And I would say I am far from successful. I have a long way to go. I just want to wrap up by saying, if you've been with the channel since the early days, watched any videos or offered any supportive words in the comments or messages, or you've hung out in the community, I really, really appreciate you sticking with the channel and the general journey. It's been an absolute mental roller coaster, and it's just getting started. It really is just getting started. Let's go. Let's keep going.